I worked in the house of a socialite for 5 years, and those years were a real test for me. She was a woman with a colorful but tragic fate. After the death of her son, who passed away too soon, she immersed herself in the world of alcohol. Every night her house was filled with the smell of expensive wine, and she became increasingly withdrawn and irritable. At times it seemed to me that her grief became her only companion, and she did not know how to cope with it. She was greedy, impulsive, and arrogant. Every day I encountered her whims and discontent. She could burst into anger over the smallest things, a wrongly wiped table or misplaced flowers in a vase. I remember once when I accidentally broke one of her favorite figurines, she looked at me with contempt, as if I were not a person, but merely an object to be replaced. But despite all this, I felt sorry for her. I knew that behind her cold mask there was deep pain, and sometimes I wanted to go over and just hug her. Every time she tried to humiliate me, to jab me with something harsh, say, "I'm just a cleaning lady, and she's the queen of her world." I stayed calm. I tolerated and tried not to react to her outbursts. I knew that my resilience pissed her off even more. It became a kind of game. The more she tried to break me, the more I felt my inner strength. I wouldn't let her get the upper hand, and that kept her on her toes. She had a sporting interest in humiliating me, in breaking my will. With each passing year, I became more and more confident. I began to realize that my job was more than just cleaning and running errands. I witnessed her life, her suffering, and her attempts to maintain a semblance of well-being. But at some point, I realized that I was losing myself in the process. I no longer wanted to be a part of her bleak world. So one day, I made a decision to quit. When I walked into her office, my heart was pounding with excitement. I told her I was bored with her. It was true. I was tired of the constant tension and playing by her rules. You should have seen her face at that moment. At first she couldn't believe her ears. Her eyes widened with shock, and then her expression changed from surprise to rage. She started screaming, accusing me of betrayal and lack of respect, but I wasn't listening anymore. I felt free. As I left the house, her screams echoed behind me, but inside I was quiet and calm. I knew I had made the right choice. Now I could start a new chapter of my life, put this toxic experience behind me, and finally focus on myself. In a small coastal town, lost among the rocks and raging waves, stood an old lighthouse. It was built more than 100 years ago and served as a guiding star for sailors navigating the dangerous waters. The lighthouse was not only a symbol of hope, but also a keeper of many secrets. The protagonist of our story is Alexei, a young historian who has always dreamed of unraveling the mysteries of the past. Once, while researching the archives of his town, he came across a mention of a mysterious light that appeared from the lighthouse during the full moon. It was said that whoever saw this light would be able to learn secrets that had been forgotten for centuries. Intrigued, Alexei decided to spend the night in the lighthouse on the next full moon. He packed everything he needed: a flashlight, a notebook, and a thermos of tea. In the evening he headed for the lighthouse, his heart beating faster with excitement. As he climbed the creaky stairs, he felt an air of mystery envelop him. At the top of the lighthouse, he settled himself at the window overlooking the raging sea. Time passed, and soon the moon began to rise above the horizon. The light grew brighter by the minute, and the waves seemed ominous and majestic at the same time. Alexei couldn't take his eyes off the moonlight reflecting on the water. Suddenly, he noticed that in the light of the moon, there was a strange gleam from inside the lighthouse. It was something unusual. It was as if the light was calling to him. Turning toward the source of the light, Alexei saw an old book lying on the table. It was covered in dust and cobwebs, yet it emitted a mysterious glow. With curiosity, he opened the book and saw many records of sailors shipwrecked off the coast of this city. But among them, there was one entry that caught his attention. It was the story of a captain named Ivan, who had gone to sea with his crew for the last time in search of treasure. However, their ship ran into underwater rocks and sank. Alexei continued reading and learned that Captain Ivan had left behind not only treasure, but also a curse. If anyone tried to find his treasure, he would forever be a prisoner of the sea. Alexei's heart beat faster. He had always dreamed of adventure and treasure. At that moment the moon rose in the sky, and the light from the lighthouse intensified. Alexei felt a whisper around him. They were the voices of sailors. They were urging him to follow them. Unable to resist the temptation, he decided to go down the stairs. Outside, the wind howled, and the waves crashed against the rocks. Alexei headed toward the beach, where the legend said Captain Ivan's treasure was supposed to be. With each step, he felt more and more obsessed with the idea. On the shore, he found an old boat that looked like it was waiting for him. Without thinking, Alexei got into it and started rowing toward the place where he thought the treasure might be. Suddenly, the sky was covered with clouds, and a strong storm began. The waves rose higher and higher, threatening to capsize the boat. Alexei was about to turn back when suddenly he noticed a glint under the water. He realized it was the treasure. Full of determination and fear at the same time, he dove into the cold water. Diving deeper and deeper, he saw a chest of gold coins and jewelry. But immediately he remembered the words about Captain Ivan's curse. Suddenly, shadows of sailors began to appear around him. They were trying to stop him. Alexei realized that he could not take the treasure. The price was too great. With an effort, he returned to the surface and swam back to the boat. The storm subsided, and soon he was on the shore. As he sat on the sand, he realized that the real treasures were not gold and jewels, but knowledge and experience. He returned to the lighthouse with new thoughts about life and the fact that sometimes it is better to leave the mysteries of the past alone. The next day, Alexei closed the book about Captain Ivan and decided to write his own story. The story of how he met the ghosts of the sea and learned an important lesson about the values of life. The lighthouse continued to shine its light for all sailors, but now it became for Alexei a symbol of wisdom and caution in the face of temptation. And from then on, every full moon evening, he came to the lighthouse not to look for treasure, but simply to listen to the whispers of the sea and think about what is really important in life. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Share your stories and impressions in the comments, and maybe your story will become a masterpiece in one of our upcoming videos. Let's dive into the world of slimes and stories together.